let's talk
Mhm.
about the other big trial that we've had you on here to completely discuss, and that's Young Thug, the YSL RICO trial. It is day 3 today, but just catch up our viewers on what we have seen during this entire case, how it's played out in the courtroom.
So this trial is absolutely rap music on trial. This is Young Thug's own music being used against him. They're pointing to his own lyrics and trying to say that it's evidence of these crimes and of his knowledge and direction of two of these murders that are involved in the RICO conspiracy charge. So we saw the prosecutor gave the opening statement on Monday, and we had one opening statement from the defense in the afternoon. But of course, with 6 defendants, that gives the opportunity for 6 defense opening statements. We only heard 5. One of the attorneys did waive their option, and sounds like he might present his opening statement at the end of the prosecution's case. But this was really quite a show for the defense attorneys to introduce themselves to the jury and introduce their clients to the jury and really kind of set the tone here. And we have the attorney for the first defendant who went in the afternoon was actually followed by the next morning by Brian Steele, who is Young Thug's lawyer. So obviously he got all the attention, but really I thought we had some strong performances from the attorneys, and everyone, most of the attorneys seem very aggressive and that they're definitely going to be putting up a big fight here. And they're just saying that this is a case of them being wrongfully accused. And Young Thug's lawyer even had some interesting explanations for he said that the song Pushin' P, which is a popular song from Gunna, who's a rapper who was actually a co-defendant in this and pleaded guilty, but Young Thug has a role in that. He said that Pushin' P stands for push and positivity, and said that prosecutors had this all wrong. And then he also had a pretty dramatic telling of the explanation for where Young Thug got his name. And he said that Thug actually means truly humbled by God, that he was always very careful to call Young Thug by his first name, which is Jeffrey. And he said that Jeffrey had made a promise to himself and a pact to himself that if he was able to succeed as a rapper and provide for his family and get rid of the hopelessness and despair that they'd grown up with, then he would be truly humbled under God. And that's what Thug means. And that really kind of took the internet by storm. But I also don't think that that's a brand new statement within the rap world. I think Thug has said things like that before. But I think there a lot of people laughed at that and thought that it was funny. But just his whole presentation of it, Brian Steele's presentation of it was very dramatic, and we saw that go forth through the other opening statements. Just some powerful presentations there.
Megan, I love that you brought that up because I really wanted to dive into that because it went viral all over the internet when they were explaining what Thug means, truly humbled under God. So when you have the defense saying this in court, but then you listen to the lyrics, I mean, it's not like if it's a choir music, it's not like if it's really pushing peace, pushing positivity. I mean, we're looking at some violent lyrics here. So do you think it's almost absurd to have this juxtaposition of, well, this is what these rappers represent, but then you listen to the songs and it's kind of a completely different picture?
I think that will be definitely something that the prosecutors are going to be trying to push in their case, just to show through the evidence that, what Brian Steele and so forth is trying to say these songs are actually about is clearly not what it's about at all. And I think we could have a chance of perhaps the jurors buying that as kind of an absurd explanation. But I mean, one thing that Brian Steele had in his favor was how genuine he seemed about it. He seemed almost a little overly dramatic in how slow he was in his tone, but I don't think you could say that he came across as disingenuous. And it will be interesting to see if he's able to back up what he said through his questioning of the witnesses, because we had the first witness was a gang detective with the Atlanta Police Department that went over some of the gang symbols and whatnot that's associated with YSL. And I think we're going to be hearing a lot more testimony about that. So it'll be interesting to see the cross-examinations on that. And then, of course, when the defense gets into their own case, they're going to have some of their own experts on rap lyrics come in and testify.
It's just so difficult because, as you said, I mean, this is artistic expression. So we kind of can make whatever we want based on what we feel like that meeting has to have at that moment. You did speak about this gang detective who testified today, talked about these rap lyrics and such. What about members of the jury who were photographed and picked up by hip hop blogs? Now, how did that play out in court?
That was interesting. That kind of played out in real time on the internet because it happened in the morning when the witness was going up to the stand. The camera was panning over, and the judge even said later that it was inadvertent. It seemed like an accident, that when the camera was panning over to catch the witness walking up to the stand, it caught like 4 faces of jurors in the front row really briefly. So with this being such a high profile case, and then just the tendency to post stuff online and tell people what's going on, No Jumper, which is a popular hip hop gossip website, posted that this was going on. And granted, they didn't post the pictures of the jurors and say, hey, let's identify these jurors. They just posted that people on the internet are trying to identify the jurors. But of course, they also posted their own clip of the video and then included a screenshot showing the jurors' faces, which kind of just exasperates the problem. So it's a safety concern for the jury for sure. And we had heard that the judge actually was meeting with the attorneys in chambers to discuss this. But, to keep things in perspective, it's not like the jurors' identities are really that secret. I mean, you could just walk into the courtroom and see their faces. But of course, this is a big national audience that they were just exposed to. So the judge's solution, he did acknowledge the inadvertent filming of the jurors, and then also mentioned something about a security concern that wasn't related to the parties in the case or anyone in the courtroom. But then he asked the media if they could not film the witness anymore, the detective, the end of his testimony. He said, could you please, would that be all right? And my impression is the reason he was asking is because there must be some kind of court orders in place about cameras in the courtroom, and whether he would have to revoke an order or not. I think he just found it at the moment in time to be, if he could just get cooperation and compliance from the media, that would just be easier than him having to revoke some kind of cameras in court order or anything like that. So the media, the cameraman quickly agreed, and he was still able to have his camera on. He just wasn't filming the detective. But we never really got an explanation for why it's the detective who's not supposed to be filmed, because his photo is widely available on the internet. He's a board member for Georgia Gang Investigator Association, and if you just Google him, he's got his photo right there, and it says he's a gang investigator. So I can't imagine it would be a security concern about that, but it just shows that there's a lot of different things kind of swirling around here. And I think it's something that a lot of other judges would find interesting, just how Judge Glanville is grappling with all the press attention on this and all the live streams that are going on.
That is just such an interesting. It's such an interesting point, though, because you would think, you're not supposed to show juries' faces. Obviously, we're not supposed to identify them, but this is so high profile. I listen to Young Thug. So many people do. A lot of people are watching this very closely. Would the judge ever have to say that the jury was tampered with, for example, kind of bring in a new jury? Is this something that's possible? Their face is already out there. So there has to be a security concern, especially when you think about the trial. This is a murder trial that we're talking about here.
Yeah, we definitely could hear more about this if these jurors go home and start getting contacted or feel threatened at all or raise any kind of concerns to the judge about any contact that they've been getting. Because for it to just be dealt with in the kind of hour-long space or couple hour-long space that it was really is not enough time to see what's actually going to happen because of this. These jurors were just in the courtroom, not looking at their phones. So who knows if they've even gotten any, Facebook friend requests or anything like that. So I think if that happens, the jurors have probably been urged to contact the court clerk immediately if they get any kind of contact like that. And then the question always becomes to the juror, do you feel you can still be impartial? And if there's a serious threat, or if you're just getting a lot of messages, is this changing your view of the case and going to cloud you one way or the other? Because I've seen cases like this or incidents like this with jurors happen in other trials. And that's the fundamental question that the judge needs to answer is, can the jury still be fair? So if the jurors start getting contacted and start raising concerns with the judge about these contacts that they've been having, I think that's when we're going to hear more about this.
We talked a little bit about the defense, their strategy, and kind of the viral quotes that they're saying in court, presenting there in front of jurors, hoping that they will win their case. I'd like to give maybe some time to the prosecution. Have we heard anything? I mean, what is their strategy? I mean, the fact I feel that people know what the defense is doing, giving them that attention, it's almost good in a way, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think the prosecution almost just kind of thinks that the evidence in the end is going to speak for itself. Because I talked to a reporter who's been covering this case for a long time and lives in Atlanta and knows all about Young Thug in the music industry, and she said it's pretty well known in the Atlanta area that YSL is a gang. I mean, and the idea that some of this conduct is just going to get ignored by the jury. I remarked to her that anytime you have a case like this, when you have so many defendants and so many different charges, it's like chances are at the end of the trial, somebody is going to get convicted of something. Probably multiple people of multiple things. It's just a matter of who and what. And is it going to be the major charges that police want or that prosecutors want? But the murder cases, especially, those are hard to ignore. And that was one thing that Jewel Wicker, the reporter, and I talked about this afternoon, was the fact that family members of the victims are in court, and just their presence is a good reminder of what the case is all about. Is that there are real victims of these crimes here, and some people who are calling for justice.
You know what's interesting that I want to point out quickly? When I showed some of that B-roll from the courtroom, you see Young Thug sitting there smiling, seeming very confident that this trial is going to go his way. Do you think that's going to backfire on him when the jury has to decide where this is going to go?
It could. I mean, you never know. I mean, I think he has every reason to be optimistic. They have good representation. I think Brian Steele was a good option for him. I think the other lawyers who were up there all seem like they have a good working plan together. So you never want to be too overly optimistic, but it seems like he's maintaining and he's relying on his lawyers to talk for him.
All right, Megan. So today was day 3. Where do we go from here? Are we going to see them in court every single day? I mean, how long is this going to last? What do you expect?
It is going to be a lengthy slog of a trial for sure. Sounds like we're not going to be in court on Fridays. The judge is the chief administrative judge, so he's got some administrative work to do. Jewel was saying, the reporter who's in Atlanta was saying that the trial has been so slow that people just slow going. People are kind of wondering, like, really, you're going to take Friday off? But yeah, he's got administrative stuff to tend to. So we'll be in court tomorrow, and then they'll be back next week. But I definitely think we're looking at many months. It's been estimated at 6 to 9 months, and I think we could see it going, possibly longer than that. But we've got the police detective finished testifying, and then I think we're going to get somebody else in the realm of a gang expert up there tomorrow.
Megan, to me, it's shocking to hear that this could last maybe 6 to 9 months. And I understand that that's because there's so many defendants here and a lot of witnesses I'm expecting that are going to take the stand. Can you kind of detail that, break it down for our viewers? Because I think a lot of people are asking themselves, like you said, the same thing. Why is this going to last so long?
Yeah, and they had something like 700 people on the prosecution witness list. I think it's unlikely we actually see 700 prosecution witnesses, but we're definitely looking at many, many witnesses. And part of it is just the sheer number of charges that they have here. And then not only the charges, but the RICO charges involve overt acts, which we're up into the hundreds on the number of overt acts that they have here. So we're going to be hearing evidence and testimony about all these different overt acts that it just kind of creates, wow, to get through all these incidents. I mean, you can just imagine the sheer number of witnesses you're going to have here. And then the fact that you have 6 defendants, which means 6 defense attorneys who all might want to question a witness at one point. That's one thing we did not see with the first witness today, was much of a cross-examination, because the witness is actually going to be back later on. He testified as an expert witness, and I think he's going to be back as a fact witness later on. So the defense attorney said, we're just going to cross-examine him all at once when he comes back. So the next witness, it'll be interesting to see how they approach the cross-examination. If this is 6 attorneys all wanting their own questioning of him, or if they kind of take turns throughout the trial on the cross-exams.
Megan, have you ever covered a trial with so many witnesses that are expected to be called to the stand?
I haven't. I've covered a 3-defendant trial, and there's kind of a famous trial in Orange County Federal Court, Orange County, California, involving the Mexican Mafia that was multiple defendants, and involving prison murders around the nation that the Mexican Mafia was charged with. And that was many defendants, and it was like a many-month trial, up to a year, a huge sets of defense attorneys. It's kind of the stuff of legend in Orange County. The judge actually still talks about it every 5 minutes if you're in his courtroom. But it's trials like this are definitely memorable, and kind of a possibly once or twice in a career for a judge, maybe, unless they have a long career and they get a few of them.
And then, Megan, I do have to ask, do we expect to see Young Thug take the stand, or Gunna?
I think I've heard that Gunna is not going to testify, that with his plea deal, some were thinking that maybe he would be a cooperating witness, but it's overall thought that he isn't going to testify. But Young Thug, it's always possible that he could. I think overall, in a case like this, if I had to make a bet, I would say he doesn't take the stand. But really, his own lawyer might not even be able to answer that question until well into the defense case, because they might want that as an option. But just in the way that Brian Steele has described Young Thug, and said that he doesn't have an ability to write words, and he can't spell very well. I mean, the idea of putting somebody like that in a really formal setting against a prosecutor for cross-examination, I think Brian Steele might just know that there's really no benefit to that, especially in kind of a RICO conspiracy case like this, that's kind of subjective for at least Young Thug's charges. Because while others are charged with actual counts of murder, Young Thug isn't. He's charged with a RICO conspiracy that includes the murders, that says he directed those murders, but his charges are a little bit more subjective, of course. So I'm kind of thinking his defense attorney would steer against that. But again, he might not even know the answer to that question right now.
And Megan, before I let you go, I do want to touch on Gunna a bit, because I feel like Young Thug has been at the forefront of the conversations. But you mentioning now that Gunna has taken a plea deal, maybe tell us where he is right now in this entire process, and the fact that he's not going to take the witness stand either.
I bet he is at home glad that he's not a part of this media circus whatsoever, and glad that he can stay away from these proceedings. And it looks like he's trying to get back and pursue a music career, and he's probably just hoping his co-defendants can meet the same fate. But I think it was a surprise to some people that he got out of the case, but he was able to get released from jail, and just to be able to take a plea deal like that and get released from jail, it kind of shows that perhaps it seems like they're really after Young Thug as the leader of YSL, and not so much Gunna.
All right, Megan. So we've had you on for a few days now, just kind of breaking all of this down, because there's so many developments, so many viral moments also from this courtroom. So when are we going to have you on next? What's the next big development that we can get from this trial?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the prosecution approaches the next few witnesses, for sure, and then just how the trial kind of plays out into next week and into the Christmas and Hanukkah holidays as we get into the December months, because the judge was talking about making sure the jury has enough time off to kind of enjoy that. So I think we're definitely going to be getting into some meaty testimony in the next couple of weeks, but then there might be a break. And there's always something going on around Los Angeles too. I mean, one thing I'm dealing with is wanting to cover this trial, but then also kind of wanting to be out in the courts doing my thing. And Uh, one case I'm kind of tracking right now is Ron Jeremy, who some people might remember from years ago. He was a pornographic actor, but he was charged with several counts of sexual assault. But he's so old and mentally, physically incapacitated that the prosecutors are saying he can't stand trial, and he actually might be released to a private residence just to live out his final days, and his victims aren't happy about it. So there's going to be a hearing about that. And that's the kind of stuff that, as a legal affairs reporter in Los Angeles, I want to make sure that I can still go to those hearings and kind of keep an eye on those hearings. So the idea of just being kind of attached to the Young Thug trial for the next 9 months it is a little much, but I definitely want to keep tracking everything that happens and all the witnesses. If Lil Wayne testifies, we've got to be there.
Well, it's so funny, Megan, because I see all your social media pages and people are they're up for this Young Thug trial. So I can't even imagine the pressure that you're under right now because everybody wants all the news and you have detailed it so well. So we appreciate it, of course, when you join us here to kind of help us break this all down. And then I also did hear about Ron Jeremy. That story, I think, came out like last week. I read a report that his mental condition.
Yeah. My friend James from the LA Times broke that story, and actually his story is kind of what prompted this hearing that's coming up, because the victims were under the impression that he wasn't going to be released to a home, that he'd be released to like some facility or something. So they're upset at the idea that he would just be released to like a home to just go hang out in a hot tub or something. But I think prosecutors are saying that he's so physically incapacitated there isn't much of a risk like that. But there's a hearing coming up to see what's going on, and I think there's a lot of intrigue about Ron Jeremy. So
definitely intriguing, at least for anyone that doesn't know. Ron Jeremy, as you did mention, a porn star back in the day. So to have him here in like a sexual assault trial, that's also something that it's almost difficult to prove in a court as well, because when that is almost your job, it would be interesting to see how that would play out for the victims. Clearly that they feel they have the supporting evidence to bring that against him, but now kind of how that's all slipped away.
Yeah. I mean, it was really some dirty charges involving a bar that he was kind of a regular a guy at, and some bathrooms assaults against the women. I mean, really some sad stuff to read about for sure.
Definitely, Megan. Well, I've had you on here for so long. I could talk about this forever, but we're going to welcome you back soon, of course. You're here. You're a correspondent now for Live Now.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
At this moment. So I want to thank you so much, of course, talking Jonathan Majors, Young Thug, and the RICO trial, and also getting a little bit of Ron Jeremy in there. We always appreciate your insights here. Legal affairs journalist Megan Cuniff. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.